Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll dive into C++ loops, specifically for, while, and do-while loops. By the end of this video, you'll have a solid understanding of how each loop works and then when to use it in your program code. Let's get started. First, let's look into the for loop. So the for loop is perfect when you know how many times you want to run your block of code. The syntax are as follows. As you can see here, we have the syntax. So first thing we have the start with for, followed by initialization, condition, and update. And then here you have the program code to be executed in each iteration. So the first thing is that we need to initialize a variable here to be placed here in our initialization. Then we will check the condition section here. If the condition here remains to be true, we execute the code and then iterate, after which we move to the update section where our variables are modified, and then it repeats the cycle until the statement here is false. So as you can see, I have here a sample C++ code here, so in order for me to demonstrate the for loop statement. So in this example, I'm going to show you how we work in counting. Okay, wait. Counting numbers from 1 to 5. There, okay? So let's go back here. So we have the basic structure of a C++ program, and then we just need to write our code. Since our objective here is to count from 1 to 5, we know that our starting value is 1, and we will loop the value until we reach the value of 5. Okay? So first thing is that we need to start with our for loop statement. So like I mentioned earlier, we start with a for, and then after that, have the open and close parenthesis here, and then curly brace. So inside the curly brace here, we will have our body of code. But before that, let's start with the for loop statement. Let me go back here and then copy this code so that we'll able to see the um, structure of a for loop. Okay. So first thing is that we have our initialization. So let's use here integer I is equals to 1, where we have created a variable I and we set it to 1, which will be our initialization. Then our program here will count up to 5. So that will be our condition. So we'll have I here less than or equal to 5. So it means that as long as I is less than or equal to 5, the loop will continue to execute. And then here we'll have our update statement I++, so each iteration will increment the value of I. Now, since we want this statement to be true, or every time this statement is true, we will execute this line of code. So code to be executed in each iteration, this section here. So we will just print here. So let's print the numbers, okay? And then we just say cout I there. Now that's our code. And then let's try to run. So as you can see, we have this section to show the output. And then if we click here, run, this is our output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you want to change the order, we just need to remove the end line here. So let's copy this one. And then let's make it as a single line. So in this case, let's have, let's remove this. Okay, sorry. Let's, the first output. And then this one here, we just need to add some spaces in order to print it at a line. So this is the first output, this one here, and then let's change the output so that it will be printed one line. As you can see, this is the first output. Simple, right? So we start with I as 1 until we reach 5. And then every time that we print the value here, we increment I plus 1. We test this condition. As long as this condition here is true, Then we'll able to print out the statement that prints up the value of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay, so let's move on to our second example. Let's create a new file here. Let's call it for loop2.c++. Okay, so in this example, I'm going to demonstrate to you how we print out even numbers from 1 to 10. So let's start with our template. Let me copy this one first and then paste it in our program code here. So the program that we'll be creating is to display the numbers 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 10. So even numbers. So we will start counting from number 2 until we reach number 10. Okay, so let's start with our program code. 4, open and close parentheses, open and close curly braces. So first thing is our initialization. Since we want to print out the value of 2, so let's start with 2 as our initial value. Integer I is equals to 2. Then the condition, until when are we going to have this loop executes? Until I is less than or equal to 10. And then how do we want to update the variable I? So we would like to update the value I by 2. So we're going to have here I plus equal to there. Then this section here is the one that will print out the value of I. So earlier we have that already. So the AI is showing this code already. So we print out the value of I and then some spaces here. And if we click here run, then oops, there's some error. Okay, what happened? I think I need to have the first one here. Hit Control A and then I think have to put some remarks and then go back to our first loop and then run it again. Okay, so we have this statement here, right? So this is the output for our second program. Okay, now let's have our third program here to count the numbers or get the sum from, let's say, from sample from 1 to 10. So let's create a new file. Okay, this one here. Create a new file. Let's call it for loop3.cpp. Okay, so before we do that, let's go to for loop 2 and then let's remark the codes here. Let's get our template and then, okay, let's go to and then paste it here. So in the third example, we will now be showing to you or getting the sum of the first 10 natural numbers. So it means that we need to get the sum of 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10. So here, the sum of the numbers is up to 55. So let's start by having here some variables. So let's start with integer sum there is equals to 0. Sum is equals to 0. And then once we have that already, the next thing to do is that let's create our for loop, which will count the numbers from 1 to 10. So for, okay, there. So we need to have this line here. This is an accumulator. It means that we're going to get the sum of the numbers as we go on with our loop. So we start with for I is equals to 1, which is our initial value, until I is less than or equal to 10. And then we increment I by 1, right? So by the way, let's have our initialization here. So int I is equals to 1, which is our initial value, I less than or equal to 10. So it means that we will loop until I is less than or equal to 10, and then we increment I by 1. And then here, we just type here sum plus equal I. So as we go into the loop, we will now be adding the values I here and then display or store it in our variable sum. And then last is we print out the value cout. There. The sum, the first natural number is there. So let's use the suggestions, okay, by our AI. So let's try to move this one here, sum, end line, and then semicolon. Okay, there. Okay, so this is our program code. Let's run it. run, and then we have the output here. So if we count the numbers from 1 to 10, if we get the sum of numbers from 1 to 10, the result will be 55. So this is our program code for this particular problem. Okay, so next is we have the while loop. Let's go back to our notes. So the while loop here is great when you don't know the exact number of iterations ahead of time. So it keeps running as long as the condition is true, same as the for loop statement. But as you can see here, we have the condition set while conditions. As long as the condition here is true, then we'll continue to execute whatever program code that we have here, right? So let's see the output now. So let's create a program now. So I'll create a new file here, okay? And let's give it a name. So this is while loop 1, the CPP. Okay, by the way, for the information of everyone, the program code can be accessed to our Git repository. Where is that? Okay, let me just show it to you here. This section here. So this is where you're going to get the program code for this tutorial. So you can take a screenshot later, or I'll add it in our description link. Okay, let's now go to our while loop. So let's get our template first and then paste it here. So in this example, I'm going to demonstrate to you the while loop, wherein we're going to count numbers from 5 to 1. So it means that we're going to decrement the value. We start with 5, and then after that, we'll end at 1. So let's start with this one here. So in the while loop, as you can see in our notes here, let me copy this one. Let me copy this and then paste it here. Okay. Let me paste. So actually, aside from the syntax that we have here, same as with the for loop, there is what you call the initialization section, in which case we set the initial value of our variable. So we place it here. So let me just get it from our for loop notes here, this section. Okay, copy this and then go to this one here. So this one here is an initialization. This section is our condition there. And then after that, the update section here will be placed inside the code that we have. So after we have executed this, we can now update the variable. So here we have our update section. It means that we're going to update the variable. Update the variable later. Okay. So this is the syntax for our while loop. Okay. Now let's start with our program code. Since we would like to start counting from number 5, I'm going to create here I is equals to 5, wherein the initial value of I is set to 5, since we're going to decrement it. And then while, okay, loop. Okay, I think this is the program code. Later I'll disable the AI here. But anyway, this is the program code that I'll be writing. So we started with 5 here, which is the initial value. And then until after that, we test the condition. Is I greater than or equal to 1? As long as this remains to be true, we execute this statement here. Then after that, we decrement the value. This section here decrements I, okay, with value of 1. So we start with 5, and then this is true. Then we decrement it, then it becomes 4. Then we test it again. It's 4 less greater than or equal to 1. Yes, again, it's true. Then we continue to execute this line here. So let's start to run our code. Okay, so I think we forgot again to have this. Okay, then let's go and have our for while here. Run the program code again. There. you have the output. Okay, so the output here shows us the numbers from 5 to 1. This section here decrements the value. So since we started it with 1 and then we test this condition, as long as I is greater than or equal to 1, we continuously print the value of I and then we decrease it by 1. Okay, so that's our first example. Next, let's move on to another example. Let's create a new file here. While loop 2, sorry, loop 2.cpp. Okay, now let's get the template again and then paste it here. Now in this program example, I'm going to print all odd numbers. Okay, I'm going to print all odd numbers using the while loop. Print odd numbers from 1 to 10. There. Okay. Now let's start with our first variable. Integer I is equals to 1. There. We start with 1 since we start with 1 here up to this one. And then the output should be 1, 3, 5, 7, then 9. There. So let's start with our while loop. While, okay, open and close parenthesis, open curly braces. So here we have our condition. We will loop until I is less than 10. Okay, that's our condition. As long I is less than 10, then here we'll print out the value of I. And then once we print out the value of I, we need to add it by 2, 1. Why 2? Because 1 plus 2 is equals to 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 2 is 7, and then 7 plus 2 is 9. So here, we're going to have I plus equals 2 there. And that's about it. Then if we click here run, did we check this one here? So let's remark this one and then move to this section. Click here run. This is the program output. So the program here demonstrates or shows to us all odd numbers. Okay, so let's now go to our next loop. Let's now go to our notes. So let's now have the do while loop. So the do while loop is similar to the for loop here, but the key difference is that it always runs the code at least once before checking the condition. So if you notice here in the syntax, the condition is placed at the later part or latter part of the program code. So it means that whether it's true or false, the condition is true or false, there's a possibility that the program will run once. Then once we execute this code statement, this is where we will just check the condition. Okay, so let's try this one here. Let's create a new file. By the way, let's try to remark the code here. Control A, and then let's add another one. So do while loop 1 and then this one here. Okay, so let me copy the template and then let me paste it here. Okay, so in this program code, let's say we would like to print the numbers from 1 to 5, same as what we had earlier. So let's start print numbers from 1 to 5. So 5. So if you notice, we have the same structure as the while loop earlier. So what do you mean by structure? This is the structure itself. By the way, we still have the initialization here, condition, and then the increment or the update part. So let's create comment section and then paste it here. Then we have our initialization and then station there. And then this is where we're going to update the part there. Okay, and then the condition is placed at the last section here. Okay, so let's start our code. So let's set it int I is equals to 1 there. Int I is equals to 1, which is our initial value. And then we start with do Okay, you put that one first, and then you have the condition here, while until I is less than or equal to 5. Then don't forget the semicolon. So first thing is that we need to display here I. Okay, that's the first value. And then we would like to increment I by 1. Okay, then we have the condition here. So let's run our code. There you have it. So it started with I is equals to 1, and then it prints out the value of I here. We increment I, so I becomes 2, and then we check, is I less than or equal to 5? Yes, 2 is less than or equal to 5. Then we go back again, then we print out here 2, and then the loop continues until we reach the value of 5. Okay? So let's have another example of a do-while loop here. Okay, let's create a new file. Do while loop 2.cpp. Okay, let's copy the template file, and then let's go here. Okay, now in this program example, what we're going to do is that we'll create a prompt asking the user to enter a positive number. There. Now, as long as the user enters a positive number, it will continue to ask the user, okay? And if the number is negative, then we exit, and then we go back again, okay? If it's negative, then we try to exit the program code, okay? So let's start with our code here, integer number as our variable, and then let's have our do while loop. So like what we have mentioned earlier, we will loop until the number is what? Okay, this one here. Okay. And then let's ask, enter a positive number. Okay, see out. Enter a positive number there. Okay. And then let's remove this line here. And then we're going to have your cin number there. And then we will, there, I think that's about it. And then we will display the number here. Okay. See out. You entered Peppa. Okay. Okay. So I think we need to add this one here. Okay. Let's click here, run. Okay, wait, let's go back to loop number 2. Do while loop 1 rather. And let's go to loop number 2. Okay. So we'll ask a positive number. If in case the user enters a negative number, then we will loop back again. Okay. So let's try to run our code. Enter positive number. Let's give 1. Then you entered 1. So that's good. Okay, let's say we run the code again, -1. So as you can see, we are prompted to enter a positive number. Okay, 23, 4. So it will continue to execute until we have not satisfied this section here. But if we enter here 5, the loop will stop. Okay, so that is our example of a do while loop here. Okay, so let's have the last example for our do while loop. Let's create a new file. Do while loop 3.cpp there. By the way, let's go back. What's wrong with this? Do while, oh, it's not inside our file there. Okay, let me copy this one, paste it here. So in our third example, using the do while loop, we will compute for the sum of numbers from 1 to n. There. Okay. So let's start. I'll set here n to 5. So meaning this is the condition. As long as the number is less than or equal to 5, we will loop. Okay. Then I create sum here is equals to 0. That will hold the answer of the computed value for our sum. And I'm going to initialize I to 1. So all this section here is our initialization area. So do, okay, do, open and close curly brace, and then while, we have our while loop here, and then we have to paste the condition while I is less than or equal to n. There. And don't forget the semicolon. Now in this section, we just need to create the variable. That's it. Sum plus equal to I. Okay. And then we increment I by 1. There. And then after that, once the loop is false, when we mean that we have reached the value of 5, then we will print out the numbers from 1 to n. There. Okay, that's about it. Okay. So here, the numbers from 1 to n, then we print out n, wherein 5 is, and then we print out the value of sum. Okay, so let's run our code. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry for that again. Let's go back here. Loop number 2. And then let's do a remark, and then go back to loop number 3. Then click here, run again. So the output here, the sum of numbers from 1 to 5, where 1 is the initial value, 5 is the final value, in which case we set it the value of n, and then we print out the value of sum, where we do have place it inside our loop here. Okay, so that's about it with our video on C++ loop. So what did we cover? In this tutorial, we have covered the following loops: for, while, and do while loop. I hope you understand or get a introductory part or understand the concept of loops here. And I'll see you in our next set of examples. Thank you for watching, and that's all for today. Bye, guys.